the sliding glass door that leads from my study to a deck outside, reveling in his own little brown dreadlocked image, knowing how handsome he is, especially when his big smile lights up the room as he sits on my desk and tells me a story about his friends. Perhaps someday he'll try out acting. In a few days he will be one of the leads in his summer camp's production of The Lion King. One of my dear friends calls him my mini-me, but I know that when I was his age, I was never as confident and self-assured as this kid growing up in a home of very educated, creative people. On the contrary, my hard-working father only went as far as the 5th grade. In 1920s South Carolina, his own father insisted that the 6 boys in the family leave school to help him on his farm. The 6 girls, my aunts, were allowed to stay in school. And my mother? She was a housewife with a high school education, but she loved reading and art, was in 3 book clubs, and of course her influence on me was huge. Nevertheless, mine was a blue-collar, working-class background. Summer jobs hauling garbage in sweltering heat at 19 when I first began to train in Asian martial arts. And before that, when I was in high school, a holiday job working the night shift until dawn on a conveyor belt at a Rand McNally company in Skokie, Illinois, slapping glue on physician's desk reference books. My father taught me not to be afraid of work. In my early teens, he was the one black man I saw day and night, the closest example I had for measuring my own strengths and weaknesses. He became my first meditation on manhood, my challenge, my Rosetta Stone. When there was something he felt he needed to do, he was focused like a dog chewing a bone until it was done. I would sometimes study him, waiting for him to slip, which he never did, even though in the late 1950s a black criminal stole every penny he'd saved to buy our first home. No need to elaborate on this, except to say that I watched my father lean against the doorway of the apartment where we lived, smoking his ubiquitous cigar, silent as a tree, and staring, just staring, off into space, reviewing his options after this disaster, figuring out how to make his next move. After that loss, I watched him work 3 jobs in the early 1960s to support my mother and me. A day job doing construction, an evening job as a night watchman, and on the weekends he logged hours helping an elderly white couple fix up their house in a North Shore suburb, a couple that remained friends of our family until their deaths. Around our house, Dad was never idle, nor did he let me do much wool gathering. If he wasn't painting the house, he was repairing something. If he wasn't repairing something, he was planning some improvement he intended to make. And whenever he came to visit my home in Seattle, he was forever tinkering with things I'd been too busy to attend. For decades, he was content to own but one carefully preserved suit, which he wore to Ebenezer AME Church. He loved to hear the minister preach and the choir sing. Despite his workaholic habits, he told his white employers that he would do overtime and time and a half on holidays, but he would never, never work on a Sunday, because, as he put it, Sunday is for church. He was always in bed by 11 p.m. and up precisely at 6:30 in the morning, even during his years of retirement. A proud, quietly pious man, he paid for my college education, expecting me to acquire the professional diploma that circumstances had prevented him from getting. And he taught me, I truly believe, how to work. Indeed, to see whatever I did, regardless of how humble the labor, as being a portrait of myself, and never to stop until my goal was realized. To disappoint him or my mother, that I dreaded as a boy more than anything on earth. I cannot doubt that he learned what he knew about duty from his father, a farmer and a blacksmith, or that in an earlier era of Black American history, his deep sense of responsibility, Protestant work ethic, and pride were widely shared by Black American men. Of course, he experienced racism. My relatives in the South have ample horror stories to tell. But when I was young and eagerly probed them for every gory detail, perversely hoping to hear their personal stories about the Klan, lynching, and the inexhaustible dirty deeds of white people, my aunts and uncles simply shook their heads and said, "It's better to leave."